I'm at the Texas Athletic Stadium where we're speaking to NFL hopeful Gerhard De Beer, who's been in the country preparing for pre-season with NFL's Buffalo Bills.
I was always a sports enthusiast. I played many sports growing up. Cricket, swimming, rugby, tennis, athletics obviously. Even tried a little bit of gymnastics and kickboxing, so I did it all. And I was always a sports enthusiast, as I said, so just learning and growing and seeing what I'm good at developed even from primary school when I started throwing discus. My first competition I ever threw, I actually set a record. And yeah, went on, fell out every time. I didn't make it to nationals until I was 15. National championship, I think I was 6th at that one. And then I was under 17 national championship before qualifying for World Youth Championships in France. I was 2nd at that one against Jan Laukortse. So, and then from there, it built on. My love for athletics grew a little bit quicker than my love for rugby, and don't get me wrong, I love rugby a lot. It's my heritage and I'm very proud of it. But the reason I chose to go into athletics was because I did better at it. And so when I came to University of Pretoria, when I first started here, I threw discus as well. I didn't play any rugby either. So after the World Junior Championships, I got recruited to a bunch of universities in America, and I said no. Originally, I wanted to go and try the South African system first. Needless to say, I didn't like it as much, and so I decided to pursue my athletics career in the United States. And with that came this intriguing moment when I was speaking to one of the coaches at the University of Nebraska, the Huskers. She showed me a bird's eye view of the campus, and I thought that was really cool. And I saw this huge stadium. I thought, wow, that's fantastic. Do we get to compete in that? She said, no, that's only for football. I said, wow, can I play? So she said no, and that's when I sparked in football. And a similar story to mine, Marcus Hunt. He went to SMU, Southern Methodist University, and he was a really good discus thrower, and he went over to SMU, tried to reinstall their track and field program, and unfortunately it didn't come through. And but the football coaches had seen him, and they said, why don't you just try out for football and see how you do? And he got drafted in the 2nd round to the Bengals. He was very successful. He has the most block kicks in college, I'm pretty sure. So he holds the record for that. So incredible athlete, incredible sportsman, and so his story inspired me to do what I do now. When I initially got to the University of Arizona, I wasn't strong enough, close to strong enough actually, so I had to put in a lot more time than the other guys did in the weight room. I had to put in a lot more time position work-wise because it was so new to me. And so, and it was tough because I was weighing 110 kilos when I got there, about 240 pounds, and then they told me I need to put on weight. Now I'm 145 kilos or 320 pounds. So, and it was rough at times because some nights I would wake up and I would throw up a little just because of all the food I had tried to force down. It's really not a fun story. And straight from supplements just because I'm worried about testing positive and all that stuff. So for the most part, I used almost no supplements. I had protein shakes and things like that, but so a lot of protein shakes, a lot of milk, and pretty much as much food as I can take. They asked me to put on an extra few kilos when I got to the Bills, but it was a stretch over about two years, so I had to pack it in pretty quick. So when you look at pads, your helmet and your shoulder pads and everything you put on, I don't look at it as protection, I look at it as a weapon. You know, it's something you use that is intended for protection, but people use it to attack others. I mean, you can hit a lot harder than you ever would in rugby just because you're protected. If you try to hit somebody like that in rugby, 1 out of 2 times, you're probably going to get hurt. So you can't do that in rugby, but there's a lot of really hard hits that you can do in football. For example, you don't have to wrap your arms when you tackle somebody because it's not a rule. But in rugby, it's a rule, but it's done for safety, you know, so you can't hit somebody as hard. Especially for my position as well, all the hitting I do is a lot harder and more physical than I ever did in rugby. I play on the offensive line, and generally you want somebody to play about at least 3 out of those 5 positions. So I could play 4. I could play both guards and both tackles. There's 5 positions total. You get the center in the middle, then you get the 2, okay, let's say center in the middle, 2 guards on the outside, and then the 2 tackles on the edges. Okay, and so I could play right guard, right tackle, left guard, left tackle. So the only time that somebody gets blindsided like that is when they're running after the ball. There's nobody, well, you're not supposed to ever take a play off on football. Even if the ball is over there, you're supposed to be doing cross defense, you know? So, for example, if a guy gets blindsided like that from the side, that's when the biggest hits happen. And I don't generally like those hits because they're actually kind of cheap shots, but those hits happen when, say, there's a guy running over there, you're chasing him, here comes somebody to block you from the side. You don't see him in your peripheral, but it's still a legal hit because it's hitting you from the front. So usually they tell us you can hit somebody from 10 and 2, because anything from the side could look like a block in the back. And a block in the back is a penalty, so. And then you could cost your team a whole touchdown, which is something you don't want to do because it's really bad. So my target right now is just to make the roster. That's something that has to be done in order to maintain my NFL career. And, you know, I need to work harder and do more than the guy next to me, because if I don't, I understand I have to make more progress than they have already made. So I have to do more than them. How can I expect to catch them if I do the same thing as they do? That doesn't make sense in my mind. So I have to do more, and I need to make sure I'm in great shape when I show up, and I need to make sure I'm strong when I show up. But more than anything, I need to make sure that I'm mentally ready. And the assignments we have and things like that, the playbook is big. I mean, we got a lot of base runs that I have to know the ins and outs of to block in every single way. They came to visit me last year for my last 2 games at college, which was really cool. I was that little kid looking for my parents in the stands, you know, and but it was really cool to see them there and have them there. And but you know, I think even in their minds, they do believe in me, but even in their minds, they had doubt. And for me, at 19 years old, I was like, nobody's gonna doubt me. I'm gonna do whatever I set my mind to, you know? And I still have that mindset, and it's ignorant, but it works. So I'm not gonna stop having that mindset, because anything I set my mind to, I believe anybody who sets their mind to anything, they can achieve. So why not me? I like to think that my work ethic comes from my dad. You know, ever since we were little, he would leave the house first and he would come home. He would leave when it's dark and come home when it's dark, you know. And he grew up very poor, worked really hard to become a surgeon, and he's my inspiration behind my work ethic, to be the best that I can be. And if I'm not successful at this, I'm gonna see this as a failure, because to me there is no failure. Failure is unacceptable, and so that's why I push myself harder and harder every day. If I do my technique right, my aiming point, for example, is where I put my eyes. If I put my eyes on the collarbone, I'm not supposed to touch his face. How am I going to make a big hit head to head? Because those are when you get hit really hard, is head to head. So how am I going to make a big hit to his head and him to me if I put my eyes in the right spot? In pass protection, that guy is never supposed to reach me. I'm supposed to keep a distance between me and him. And so it's things like that. If you do your technique right, you can avoid those injuries. Now, I understand that there's a big risk coming into the sport, and everybody who's playing it understands that risk as well. And it comes high risk with high reward, you know, and so it is what it is. You're either going to accept it or you're not. So if you're not going to accept it, then you're not going to play. So I'm not going to give up this opportunity just because I'm afraid of something, you know. And so I'm not afraid of it at all. In fact, it's the big hits actually is what drives me to play the sport. The physicality of it is so alluring. The coach asked the other day how many guys would play for the love of the game if they took all the money away. There's only a handful of people who put their hands up, and I thought that's interesting. But I was one of them, and that's what the guys did in the olden days. It was more for pride than it was for monetary gains. And so I believe there's a lot of pride to earn out of being successful at this, because the challenge when I took on football was, how far can I take a sport that I know nothing about and never played in my whole life? And so far I've done okay, but there's a lot more that I can do. Jim Kelly was the quarterback back in the day when they went to 4 straight Super Bowls, and I know a guy, Glenn Parker, who's been mentoring me and he's been a great help to me and success in my career because he's helped me so much. But he was playing for the Buffalo Bills at that time, and they were headline news almost every day, you know, because they were such a great team. And what he told me is there was a fair in Buffalo that he had went to, and he told Jim Kelly about it. Jim Kelly, who was the quarterback, he said, "Man, I wish I could do that." So he had to take himself out of doing that just because too many people would approach him. And that's tough to do, but it comes along with it. And as an offensive lineman, luckily, I don't have to deal with that too much. And I hope I really don't have to, because I want to play the game, hopefully make some money doing it. But in the same respect, like, I want to play football more than I want to. The attention, it's not the reason I play the game. And for me, it's more important to play the game and be successful at it than it is for everything that comes along. There's a lot of people that play for the fame and the fortune of it, you know, and to each their own. I don't pass judgment onto any of that. So that's pretty much it. I'm not too good about the history of the game, just because, you know, a lot of people are really big on the history because they get to know the players as they go on. And but since I never grew up in the US, I've been playing catch up, you know. I know the big names like Reggie Bush, Tom Brady, and Aaron Rodgers. I actually met Aaron Rodgers, but I didn't recognize him. And I was sitting down, I was like, "Hey, what's up, man? What's your name?" He said, "I'm Aaron." I said, "I'm De Beer. Nice to meet you." Oh, Aaron Rodgers. So that was quite a bit of a shock to me. And then the guy who was my host, he said, "You just asked Aaron Rodgers what his name is." I said, "Yeah, it's okay." So it didn't bother me too much, but in the same respect, like, it also shows a bit of how much I still have to learn about it. You know, I've had a few people contact me saying, "Wow, how did you do that? I want to go play football." And I'm like, you know, it's very difficult for me to say, you know, here's how to do that, because my way in was track and field. Throwing discus was my way into starting to get onto a football team, and I can't tell anybody on how to do that. I've had multiple people contact me, and the only advice I gave them is, don't let anybody tell you your dreams are too big, but in the same respect, like, find a way in. I had a scholarship. If I didn't have that, I wouldn't have been able to go over there. It's too expensive. And so that's the challenging part about it. And I wish everybody could go over and be successful at it. I really do. But I don't have advice to give them on how to do that, because I was just in the right place at the right time. Because I don't think the coach before Rich Rodriguez, who was my head coach, I don't think the coach before him would have let me be a walk-on, or the coach after him either. So positive experiences, obviously, I have a shot at the NFL. I think that's the thing that I take most out of everything that I put into those 5 years. 5 years of incredibly hard work that I finally paid off. And then one negative that I've taken is a lack of experience. And that's something that's going to hang over my head as I go into this. And I know it's going to be hanging over my head for a few years as well, even if I do well. But the good thing about the NFL is it's a production business. If I do well, I'll be compensated for it. If I don't, I'll get cut. So it's all on me. And that's what I like about it, is there's no politics involved, because that guy's job is just as important as mine. Because if I don't do my job well, he's going to find somebody to replace me. If I do my job well, he looks good. So it's a production business. I do well, he does well, we're all happy.